Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through stacks of sources to bring you, well, the insights that really matter.
And today we're tackling something a bit unexpected in the fast lane world of business.
Exactly. Patience. Specifically, the unwavering patience of Jeff Bezos. Seems almost like a contradiction for a guy known for speed, right?
It really does. It's a fascinating paradox. People talk about Amazon's incredible speed, its disruption.
Yeah, the growth was just explosive.
But underneath that speed, as we'll dig into, was this bedrock of extraordinary long-term vision. Patience was kind of the engine.
That's what we're here to unpack. Our mission in this deep dive. Track how Bezos' patience showed up across, 7 key stages?
Yeah.
Amazon, Blue Origin, the whole journey.
Right, and we've got a great stack to work from. Articles, research on his business lessons, those famous shareholder letters.
And stuff on his personal ventures too, Blue Origin, the Washington Post, plus his decision models, how he thought about innovation, even failure.
It's a rich mix.
So the goal is to see how this patience worked, the benefits, the practical steps,
Yeah.
who he was up against, and crucially, what you can take away from it all, whether you're an entrepreneur or just want to be, deeply informed.
And it's key to remember, this wasn't passive waiting. His patience was active, strategic. It shaped everything.
Okay, let's dive right in. Stage 1, the very beginning. We're talking 1994.
Hard to imagine now.
Yeah. Jeff Bezos, he's a well-paid VP at an investment firm, D.E. Shaw, and he just quits
Walks away from security.
to start an online bookstore from his garage. I mean, it sounds incredibly impulsive, not patient. So what was really going on there?
That's the core puzzle of this first stage, isn't it? It looked impulsive, but it was grounded in some serious analysis. He saw the internet growing at, 2,300% a year?
Wow, okay.
An undeniable opportunity, but the real sign of patience, his regret minimization framework.
Yes, I've heard about this. Tell us more.
He literally pictured himself at 80, looking back.
Yeah.
And he asked, what would I regret more? Trying this internet thing and maybe failing, or not trying at all?
And the answer was clear.
Absolutely. He knew he'd regret not trying far more. So that framework, that long-term view, gave him the patience to choose the potentially bumpy road over immediate comfort. It wasn't about short-term gain. It was about long-term peace of mind, almost.
That reframes it completely. It's a really human way to make a huge decision.
Yeah.
So it's a calculated leap. And he didn't just jump into anything online. He picked books specifically.
Right. Another sign of patience, not rushing into every category. Why books?
Good question. Why books?
Well, they're standardized items, perfect for online selling, and you could offer a massive selection online, way more than any physical store.
Okay. Makes sense.
So choosing books was methodical. It was about building foundational customer trust for this totally new idea of an online retailer. People needed to trust it first.
And his patience wasn't just thinking, it was doing, right? You mentioned the garage.
Totally. He wasn't just the ideas guy. He was hands-on, developing software himself, driving cross-country to get domain rights, setting up in Seattle.
That shows a willingness to do the grunt work. Patience with the unglamorous bits.
Exactly. Patience with the foundational steps that actually build something real.
So this patient groundwork, what did it actually achieve in those early critical days? What were the payoffs?
Well, first, the big one. He avoided that future regret he was so focused on. That was huge for him personally.
Right, the framework worked.
Second, choosing books carefully. That built strong product market fit. It created that crucial trust with early customers, which you just couldn't buy.
And that trust fueled growth.
Massively. And third, it gave him that crucial early mover advantage. Get this. Within 30 days of launch, they sold books in all 50 states and 45 countries.
30 days. Without press.
Without press. That shows the power of hitting the right note patiently from the start.
That is astounding. So for us listening, how do we apply that patient foresight?
Well, maybe try that regret minimization framework for your own big decisions. Career, life, whatever. Think long-term about what truly matters.
Take the 80-year-old perspective.
Yeah. And look at his research, his move to Seattle near book suppliers, tech talent. That wasn't rash. It was calculated patience and preparation.
Smart.
And finally, the frugality, the garage, the makeshift desks. That shows patience with limited resources, turning constraints into, advantages, inventing your way out.
Definitely. But he wasn't operating in a bubble, right? Who was he actually competing against in that online gold rush?
Oh, plenty of competition. You had the big traditional bookstores, Barnes& and Noble, Borders, huge incumbents.
Right, the establishment.
Then there was his old path, the secure job at D.E. Shaw, which represented, the road not taken.
The safe route he rejected.
And then, yeah, a whole swarm of other early internet ventures, all trying to strike gold. Many lacked his strategic patience, though. They burned out quick.
So the lessons for entrepreneurs seem pretty clear from this stage.
I think so. Lesson 1. Prioritize that long-term vision over short-term comfort. Use frameworks like regret minimization for those defining choices.
Even if it feels risky now.
Especially then. Lesson 2. Bias for action is good, yes, but couple it with patience. Build the solid foundation. Choose your starting point carefully for sustainable success.
Don't just chase the shiny object.
Exactly. And lesson 3. Resourcefulness and frugality aren't weaknesses early on. They force creativity. Patience with limits can be a superpower.
It really boils down to conviction, doesn't it? Building something to last.
That's the core of it. Deep conviction.
Okay, great point. Let's move forward. By 1997, Amazon's public. It's expanding like crazy. CDs, videos, toys, clothes, becoming a real e-commerce force.
The diversification phase.
But what's striking here, and you mentioned it earlier, is his deliberate avoidance of a big marketing budget. In the dot-com frenzy, that was unusual.
Unusual is putting it mildly. It was practically parody back then. Everyone was spending fortunes on Super Bowl ads.
Right. Burn rates were insane.
And Bezos. He basically said no. That was a huge sign of patience. He put his money, or rather his lack of spending, where his mouth was.
So what was the alternative? How did they grow?
Purely focusing on the customer experience to drive word of mouth. His philosophy was simple, he said. If you build a great experience, customers tell each other about that. Word of mouth is very powerful.
Customer obsession.
Exactly. The goal. Earth's most customer-centric company, relying on organic growth, on happy customers talking. That's a massive bet on patience over immediate ad impact.
I remember those early days vividly. And one thing that felt revolutionary was the customer reviews. He actively defended having negative reviews on the site.
Seems crazy from a short-term sales perspective, doesn't it? Why show the bad stuff?
Yeah, most retailers would hide that.
But Bezos saw it differently. He argued those negative reviews, the honest ones, were crucial for building long-term trust and transparency, even if it cost a sale today.
Trust over transactions.
Precisely. And that meant, as he put it, being very comfortable being misunderstood. He knew people wouldn't get why he prioritized long-term satisfaction over short-term profits. That takes incredible patience waiting for perception to catch up with reality.
Okay, so this patient, almost stubborn focus on the customer, what did it actually get Amazon? What were the results?
The results were enormous. First, incredibly powerful, cost-effective marketing. Genuine customer advocacy beats ads any day.
Organic reach.
And it's authentic. Second, it built that deep, enduring trust and reputation. That translated directly into loyalty, repeat business, customer lifetime value.
Holy grail.
Absolutely. And third, this customer-first engine. That's what enabled Amazon's rapid expansion into new products and markets. They followed the customer.
So how did they apply this obsession day to day? What were the practical things they did?
Well, the review system itself was a huge application, encouraging detailed, honest feedback, good and bad, to constantly improve.
Using feedback as data.
Exactly. Then there was the charge less philosophy, patiently working, grinding to cut costs and boost efficiency so they could offer lower prices. They knew lower prices drove long-term volume.
It wasn't about maximizing margin on every sale.
No, it was about the long game. And he fostered that bias for action in employees, empowering them to iterate quickly, fix things, improve services based on customer feedback, knowing that even mistakes were learning opportunities for the customer.
Interesting. So in this online world just starting to bloom, who are the competitors that this patient customer-first approach was leaving behind?
Primarily the traditional retailers, still stuck on physical stores, traditional ads, slow to adapt online.
Yeah, the incumbents struggled.
Also, probably some other early online players who maybe chased quick marketing buzz or focused only on short-term profits. They didn't build that loyal base.
Or companies that weren't transparent.
Definitely. Companies with less open feedback systems just couldn't build that same level of organic trust that Amazon did.
So boiling it down again for entrepreneurs listening, what are the key lessons from this phase?
Okay, lesson 1. Customer satisfaction above all else. Relentless, patient focus on the customer is a killer competitive advantage. It drives sustainable, organic growth.
Patience pays off through the customer.
Totally. Lesson 2. Real word of mouth is gold. Invest patiently in making something so good, people have to talk about it. Trust that organic spread.
Let the experience be the marketing.
You got it. And lesson 3, cultivate deep conviction in your long-term vision. Be ready to be misunderstood by short-term thinkers. Patience lets you stick to your guns and prove your principles over time.
That really makes you wonder, though, how many companies truly operate with that level of conviction today, especially with quarterly pressures.
It's a massive challenge, a powerful question.
Okay, let's keep going. We're now heading into a major storm. The dot-com bubble bursting around 2000. Carnage everywhere.
Yeah, a brutal time for tech, lots of flameouts.
But Amazon, it survived. It even thrived. How did Bezos' patience factor in here when so many others crashed and burned?
This period really put his approach to the test. People started talking about his unusually slow-paced business plan, which sounds odd for Amazon, but it was about financial discipline.
How so?
He prioritized reinvesting all revenue back into the business, keeping prices low, even if it meant no profits for years. And crucially, he focused relentlessly on free cash flow, not traditional accounting profit JAP earnings.
Okay, explain free cash flow simply.
Basically, the actual cash generated by the business after investments. It's a measure of real financial health and ability to reinvest more than just paper profits. He patiently tolerated, over 6 years of unprofitability?
6 years.
Waiting for the model to mature. Even when they did become profitable, margins were, as they say, razor thin for a long time. That required immense patience.
And right in the middle of this uncertainty, 2005, he makes another huge bet, Amazon Prime.
Crazy timing, right? Free 2-day shipping. It looked like financial suicide on paper.
The models must have screamed, no.
They did. Internal models apparently showed it was a terrible idea, financially, at least short term. But Bezos pushed it through. Why?
Customer value.
Exactly. His intuition, his conviction, told him it would create immense long-term value for customers, even if the numbers didn't immediately pencil out. That's trusting the long game over the spreadsheet.
And he kept communicating this, right? The shareholder letters.
Consistently, he famously kept attaching his original 1997 letter to shareholders in later years.
Reminding them of the mission.
Reminding them of the long-term philosophy. Focus on free cash flow, invest for the future, serve the customer. That took patience and conviction, especially when the market wanted quick profits.
So the benefits of this financial discipline, this patience during the crisis, must have been enormous.
Absolutely game-changing. First, pure crisis resilience. That disciplined approach let Amazon ride out the dot-com bust while competitors vaporized. They grabbed market share.
Survival of the patient.
Kind of, yeah. Second, it fueled sustained innovation. Having strong free cash flow meant they could keep experimenting, keep investing, without being strangled by short-term demands for profit.
Cash is king for innovation, too.
Definitely. And third, Prime. That bet, driven by patient customer focus, became a cornerstone. It massively deepened loyalty, increased buying frequency, a home run long-term.
So how did they apply this financial patience in their actual operations? What were the mechanics?
Well, the aggressive reinvestment strategy was key. Plow everything back in, keep prices low, expand selection, build infrastructure, don't worry about distributing profits.
Feed the beast.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
They also relentlessly optimized their operating cycle.
Meaning?
Getting paid by customers before they had to pay their suppliers, turning inventory fast. This minimized the cash tied up in the business and maximized that free cash flow. It built a cash moat for tough times.
Oh, very smart.
And then, yes, that consistent communication with shareholders, patiently educating them, managing expectations for the long haul.
Who was Amazon essentially outlasting or proving wrong during this turbulent period?
Well, obviously, the other dot-coms that lacked that financial discipline and long-term vision, they just burned out.
Yeah, the casualties were huge.
Also, traditional retailers whose models weren't as resilient to the downturn or the shift online?
Then Wall Street?
Often, yes. The analysts, the investors, focused purely on those short-term gap earnings. Bezos was playing a different game, focused on that long-term free cash flow, and he had the patience to stick with it.
Okay. Lessons for entrepreneurs from surviving the storm.
3 big ones, I think. First, cultivate strategic patience for profitability. Real sustainable growth often means deferring short-term gains, constantly reinvesting. It's a marathon.
Not a sprint for profit.
Right. Second, focus on free cash flow. See it as a vital sign of your business's long-term health and its capacity to invest and innovate. Don't just look at traditional earnings.
Understand the real cash engine.
Yes. And third, trust your customer-centric judgment for the bold bets. Have the courage to do what's undeniably good for customers long term, even if the initial numbers look scary. Customer value often trumps short-term models.
It's fascinating how profit for Bezos seemed less like the goal and more like the fuel for more investment and customer value.
That's a really crucial distinction. It changes everything.
Absolutely. Okay, let's shift gears again. Mid-2000s to early 2010s. This is where Amazon really becomes synonymous with innovation. We're talking Kindle, AWS.
Yeah, the innovation powerhouse era. And again, driven by patient long-term bets.
Let's start with Kindle in 2007.
Mm.
Revolutionized reading, right?
Yeah.
But building hardware. That wasn't Amazon's background.
Not at all, and that highlights his patience. He was willing to, as he put it, build muscles in totally new complex areas like hardware. Why? Because he understood those capabilities were essential for long-term options for future innovation.
Investing in capabilities, not just products.
Exactly. It showed huge patience in developing entirely new core competencies from scratch. And then there's AWS Amazon Web Services, maybe the ultimate example.
Picking their internal tech and selling it.
Yeah, transforming their own IT infrastructure, the stuff that ran Amazon.com, into a service anyone could rent. That took years of investment, iteration, tinkering, long before it became the profit engine it is today.
It wasn't an overnight success.
Far from it. He explicitly talked about allowing new businesses to grow slowly, needing patience and nurturing, often 3 to 7 years before they really contributed significantly. That's a true long-term perspective in tech years.
So what were the big wins, the major benefits that came from these patient, sometimes non-obvious innovations?
Monumental benefits. They literally revolutionized huge industries, publishing with Kindle, IT with AWS. They created entirely new markets and built massive competitive moats. Hard to copy.
AWS especially became huge.
Massively profitable, it completely diversified Amazon's business, gave them incredible financial strength. And beyond those big ones, think about platforms like KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, or FBA, Fulfillment by Amazon.
Letting others build on their platform.
Right. He patiently built these self-service platforms that empowered millions of sellers and authors. It decentralized innovation and scaled Amazon's reach far beyond what they could do alone, removing gatekeepers as he saw it.
So how did this patience show up in how they developed these things? I remember hearing about working backwards for Kindle.
Perfect example. For Kindle, they didn't start with the tech they had. They started with the customer vision. Any book got accessed in less than 60 seconds. Then they patiently worked backwards, building the tech, hiring the people needed to make that vision real.
Start at the customer needs, solve backwards.
Exactly. Requires immense patience not to compromise the vision based on current limits. AWS was similar, born from internal needs, then patiently productized and offered externally. It shows that think big and invent and simplify mindset, leveraging internal assets patiently.
And finding the right people.
Crucial. He patiently cultivated what he called missionaries, people deeply passionate about disrupting an industry who understood the old ways well enough to transform them effectively.
Who were they disrupting or competing with in this platform expansion phase?
Well, for Kindle, it was the traditional publishing world publishers, distributors who were often slow to digitize and didn't love Amazon's terms, plus other e-reader makers like Barnes & Noble's Nook.
And AWS?
Initially, legacy IT providers. Then, eventually, the other tech giants woke up, Microsoft with Azure, Google with Google Cloud. But Amazon had a huge head start thanks to that early patient bet.
Okay, the lessons for entrepreneurs here seem really powerful.
Definitely. First, invent for unarticulated customer needs. Don't just ask customers what they want. Patiently anticipate and build what they will love even before they know they need it, like Kindle or AWS.
Eat around corners.
Sort of, yeah. Second, turn your internal solutions into external products. Patiently look at the tools and systems you build to solve your own problems. They might solve problems for a much bigger market, like AWS did.
Leverage your own plumbing.
Exactly. And third, integrate R&D everywhere. Make sure innovation and tech thinking patiently permeate the whole organization, not just one department. Foster a culture where everyone's looking to improve and invent.
That's a deep cultural shift. Okay, fast forward again. Mid-2010s, Amazon is now enormous, a true behemoth.
Unquestionably dominant in many areas.
And yet, Bezos becomes almost obsessed with avoiding something he calls day two. What on earth is day two, and why was he so fixated on fighting it?
Day two is his shorthand for corporate death, basically. It starts with stasis, settling down, becoming complacent, then comes irrelevance, then decline, then, well, the end. Yeah. His deep fear of day two drove this relentless push to maintain the energy, the agility, the customer obsession of a startup of day one, no matter how big Amazon got. It required constant vigilance, constant patience in challenging the status quo, never resting on laurels.
A continuous fight against complacency.
Exactly. And tied to that was his view on failure. He famously called failure and invention inseparable twins.
How does that relate to patience?
It means you have to be patient with experimentation, knowing that many experiments will fail. He literally said, if you know in advance that it's going to work, it's not an experiment.
So failure is part of the process.
A necessary part. He fostered a culture where teams could be patient with setbacks, learn from them, not get crushed by them. He patiently nurtured what he called seedlings, those weird, initially unpromising ideas that might become the next AWS or FBA. You have to give them time and space.
So this day one mentality, this patient fight against complacency, what were the payoffs for Amazon as it scaled massively?
Absolutely critical benefits. First, sustained innovation, even at huge scale. By fighting day two and embracing failure, they kept making bold bets. Think Echo and Alexa, learning directly from the Fire Phone flop.
Ah, yes, the Fire Phone.
A famous failure, but they learned. Second, it maintained operational agility. Things like 2 pizza teams and the one-way, two-way door decisions helped them stay nimble despite their size, avoiding that soul-crushing bureaucracy.
Tell us more about those two things. They sound intriguing.
Okay, 2 pizza teams. Simple rule, keep teams small enough that you could feed them with 2 pizzas. This promotes autonomy, communication, efficiency, focused patient development, prevents bloat.
Makes sense. And the doors.
The one-way, two-way door framework. Decisions are classified. Two-way doors are reversible decisions like an A/B test. Make those quickly, experimentally, learn fast.
Okay.
One-way doors are irreversible, high-stakes decisions like building a giant fulfillment center. Those require slow, careful, patient deliberation. It optimizes decision speed and encourages thoughtful betting.
So you know when to be fast and when to be patient.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And taking the Fire Phone failure in stride, calling it a necessary failure that paved the way for Alexa, that shows incredible discipline and patience with the messy reality of innovation, learning from sunk costs, playing the long game.
It sounds super effective for driving innovation. But did that relentless day one push have downsides? What about the pressure on people? And who are they maneuvering with this approach?
That's a really important point, and yeah, the sources acknowledge the debate. That high-performance, high-standards culture, while amazing for results, was also seen by critics as, well, demanding, challenging for employees sometimes.
A potential trade-off.
Potentially. But in terms of who they outmaneuvered, largely it was those established large companies that did succumb to day two. The slow, bureaucratic, risk-averse ones. Think Blockbuster, Sears. The contrast is stark.
Companies that lost their day one energy.
Exactly, and they continued competing fiercely with rivals like Google on smart home devices, Google Home versus Echo, and Apple on hardware and streaming, Apple TV versus Fire TV.
Got it. So lessons for entrepreneurs trying to scale without stagnating.
Okay, 1. Actively fight day two. Build in mechanisms, cultural, operational, to consciously resist complacency and keep that startup dynamism. It takes constant effort, constant patience with the process of renewals.
Stay vigilant.
Always. 2. Empower fast, decentralized decisions for the reversible stuff, two-way doors. But be patient and deliberate on the big, irreversible bets, one-way doors. Know when to speed up and when to slow down.
Optimized decision-making.
Right. And 3. See failure as a feature, not a bug. Frame experiments that don't work out as valuable learning fuel for future breakthroughs. Requires patience to iterate, pivot, and not give up.
Failure is R&D. Okay, fascinating.
Yeah.
Now, as Amazon's empire kept growing, late 2010s, early 2020s, Bezos' patience seemed to expand even further into broader societal roles.
Yeah, the scope definitely widened. You see big strategic moves reflecting this. The Whole Foods acquisition in 2017 for, what, $13.7 billion? That was huge.
A massive bet on physical retail, on groceries.
And his patience showed in the integration. It wasn't a quick flip or just sticking the Amazon name on it. They patiently worked to weave Whole Foods into the ecosystem for delivery, for a physical footprint, patient synergy building.
And personally, he bought the Washington Post back in 2013.
He did. $250 million of his own money. And again, patience was key. Transforming a struggling legacy newspaper back to profitability and digital relevance took sustained effort, investment, applying tech thinking patiently.
Bringing Amazon principles to news.
In a way, yes. And then came the major philanthropy, the Day One Fund in 2018 for homelessness and education, the Bezos Earth Fund in 2020 committing $10 billion to climate change.
Massive commitments.
These weren't token gestures. They signaled a patient, long-term approach to tackling huge, complex societal problems. And around the same time, Amazon raised its minimum wage to $15 in the U.S. A response to pressure, yes, but also showing a broadening sense of responsibility.
So what were the payoffs for Amazon or Bezos himself from this patient diversification into these broader roles?
Several things. With Whole Foods, it clearly expanded their market presence, gave them grocery expertise, supply chain control, enhanced customer convenience like that 2-hour delivery. Huge strategic win.
Strengthen the core business.
Yes. With the Post, his patient investment revitalized a vital media institution, proving tech principles could work there. That had ripple effects.
And the philanthropy and wage hike.
While definitely facing scrutiny and debate, these moves aim to enhance corporate reputation, address societal impact, which is increasingly crucial for long-term brand health and attracting talent. Patient investment in social capital, you could say.
How is this patience applied practically in these different arenas?
Well, strategic vertical integration with Whole Foods, patiently leveraging the acquisition to improve the customer experience.
Connecting the dots.
Right. With the Post, it was cultural infusion, patiently applying that tech-first, customer-centric mindset, building up their tech team, transforming operations.
A slow transformation.
Definitely. And with philanthropy, it was allocating huge chunks of personal wealth to funds designed for long-term impact on massive problems. That's patience on a societal scale.
In these broader plays, who were the established players they were now interacting with or challenging?
In groceries, obviously the big traditional chains, Walmart, Kroger. In media, other news organizations grappling with digital disruption.
And philanthropy.
Other major foundations, other billionaires tackling similar huge issues like climate change or homelessness.
Okay, lessons for entrepreneurs as they scale and think about impact.
I'd say strategic diversification takes patience. Don't just acquire. Patiently integrate. Apply your core strengths to create real synergy and broader market presence.
Think integration, not just acquisition.
Exactly. Second, embrace social responsibility as you grow. Proactively, patiently address your societal impact. It's not just good PR, it's crucial for long-term sustainability and reputation.
It becomes part of the business.
Increasingly, yes. And third, personal investments can amplify influence. Using your own capital outside the main company can patiently extend your reach, shape new fields. But be prepared for intense public and ethical scrutiny.
That comes with the territory. All right, this brings us to the final stage, perhaps the grandest vision of all, Blue Origin and the future.
The space chapter.
In 2021, Bezos steps down as Amazon CEO, becomes executive chairman, specifically to dedicate more time to other passions. And the main passion is clearly Blue Origin.
This is the ultimate long game, isn't it? The pinnacle of his patience. He founded Blue Origin way back in 2000.
Wow, that long ago.
Yeah.
While still running Amazon full tilt.
Yes. Decades of patient dedication to a childhood dream of space long before he stepped back from Amazon, and their motto says it all, gradatim ferociter.
Which means?
Step by step, ferociously. It perfectly captures the approach. Patient, methodical engineering don't skip steps, but pursued with intense drive and aggression. It's a contrast to maybe faster, riskier approaches elsewhere.
And he's funding this largely himself, right? Selling Amazon stock.
Billions of dollars worth year after year. That's profound financial commitment, showing incredible patience with the extremely long, expensive development cycles in aerospace, even amidst criticism that they aren't moving as fast as, say, SpaceX.
So what are the benefits, the goals of this multi-decade, incredibly patient space venture?
Well, for him personally, it's pursuing that deep, lifelong passion, but the stated vision is huge, solving humanity's perceived future resource limits by enabling life and industry in space.
A grand vision.
Truly. And that ambition, backed by his Amazon track record, helps attract top-tier engineering talent despite the challenges. Ultimately, it's about patiently laying the infrastructure for a multi-generational future, potentially for trillions of humans, avoiding what he sees as eventual stasis and rationing if we stay confined to Earth.
How does he apply his Amazon experience, his patient methods, to something as different as rocket science?
Through strategic leadership transfer, for one, bringing in former Amazon execs like Dave Limp as CEO, injecting that operational rigor, those team-building lessons, patiently trying to instill that Amazon culture into Blue Origin.
Applying the Amazon playbook.
In a sense, it also reflects that go big or go home drive for historical impact. Amazon was huge, but Blue Origin is about changing humanity's future. That requires audacious goals and the patient, sustained investment to maybe achieve them.
And sticking with it despite slow progress.
Exactly. His continued funding and cultural infusion, even when milestones slip compared to rivals, shows that disciplined, patient, long-term commitment to a super capital-intensive, incredibly complex field.
Who are the main competitors or players in this new space race Blue Origin is part of?
Well, the elephant in the room is SpaceX, led by Elon Musk. Direct, formidable rival, often seen as faster, maybe more risk-tolerant.
The tortoise and the hare, maybe.
Could be framed that way, though both are ferocious. Then you have NASA, other national agencies, and a growing number of other private space companies focused on satellites, tourism, etc. It's a crowded space, pardon the pun.
Okay, final lessons for entrepreneurs from this ultimate long bet.
Go big. Pursue monumental, long-term visions. Aim to make history. Tackle grand challenges that might take decades. Don't be afraid to think multi-generationally.
Dream really big.
And believe you can transfer proven methods. Patiently inject successful cultures, operational rigor from one venture into another, even across different industries, to boost performance.
Leverage what you've learned.
Absolutely. And finally, brace yourself. Prepare for intense public, ethical, political scrutiny when you pursue world-changing ambitions, especially those involving huge resources or societal shifts. It requires immense patience and resilience.
Wow, what a journey we've traced through all these stages, from that initial garage startup driven by regret minimization,
To the relentless customer obsession that fueled early growth.
the financial patience that weathered the dot-com storm and enabled bets like Prime.
The platform innovations like Kindle and AWS born from patient, long-term R&D.
That fierce day one fight against complacency as they scale.
To diversification into groceries, media, philanthropy, broadening the scope.
And now, the multi-decade, truly grand ambition of Blue Origin. It really underscores the theme.
It absolutely does. His journey shows patience isn't passive. It's active, it's strategic, it evolves, it's fueled by vision, adaptability, and just relentless persistence.
That willingness to invent for the customer, embrace failure as learning, constantly challenge the status quo.
It all comes back to that patient drive to build something lasting, to make history, to create real competitive edges over the long haul.
Definitely. So here's a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on. We've talked a lot about the benefits of Bezos' relentless drive, his high standards for innovation and long-term success.
Absolutely key
Yeah.
drivers.
But those same qualities, as we touched on, have also been viewed by some critics as creating a really challenging, high-pressure workplace culture at times.
Right, the intensity factor.
So it raises a question for the future, for any leader pursuing these kinds of huge, decades-long, ambitious visions. How might the idea of listening to employees, balancing drive with well-being, need to evolve or be reprioritized in that context? Something to think about. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through stacks of sources to bring you, well, the insights that really matter.
And today we're tackling something a bit unexpected in the fast lane world of business.
Exactly. Patience. Specifically, the unwavering patience of Jeff Bezos. It seems almost like a contradiction for a guy known for speed, right?
It really does. It's a fascinating paradox. People talk about Amazon's incredible speed, its disruption.
Yeah, the growth was just explosive.
But underneath that speed, as we'll dig into, was this bedrock of extraordinary long-term vision. Patience was kind of the engine.
That's what we're here to unpack. Our mission in this deep dive. Track how Bezos' patience showed up across, 7 key stages?
Yep.
Amazon, Blue Origin, the whole journey.
Right, and we've got a great stack to work from. Articles, research on his business lessons, those famous shareholder letters.
And stuff on his personal ventures too, Blue Origin, the Washington Post, plus his decision models, how he thought about innovation, even failure.
It's a rich mix.
So the goal is to see how this patience worked, the benefits, the practical steps,
Yeah.
who he was up against, and crucially, what you can take away from it all, whether you're an entrepreneur or just want to be, deeply informed.
And it's key to remember, this wasn't passive waiting. His patience was active, strategic. It shaped everything.
Okay, let's dive right in. Stage 1, the very beginning. We're talking 1994.
Hard to imagine now.
Yeah. Jeff Bezos, he's a well-paid VP at an investment firm, D.E. Shaw, and he just quits
Walks away from security.
to start an online bookstore from his garage. I mean, it sounds incredibly impulsive, not patient. So what was really going on there?
That's the core puzzle of this first stage, isn't it? It looked impulsive, but it was grounded in some serious analysis. He saw the internet growing at, what was it, 2,300% a year?
Wow, okay.
An undeniable opportunity, but the real sign of patience, his regret minimization framework.
Ah, yes, I've heard about this. Tell us more.
He literally pictured himself at 80,